Good afternoon, Mrs. Speaker and House. A side proposition, today we will be showing you why this House regrets globalization. Much like colonialism, globalization represents a system put in place to directly benefit rich Western countries by exploiting developing countries and creating undoable damage to their economies and their societies. We define globalization as being the process by which businesses or other organizations develop international influence or start operating on an international scale. The parameters for this debate are the entire world. And we see that this debate is relevant, as recently we have seen the near extinction of such animals such as the orangutan due to globalization. We also see the urgency in issues such as the defilement of human rights in countries such as China and terrorist threats that are ongoing in both America and Europe. The world's developing countries would therefore be in a stronger economic position with more resources if globalization never happened. We see this with as well as the rise of corruption in developing countries, which can also be attributed to globalization. And if globalization had never occurred, side propositions say that developing countries would also be in a better position politically and socially. On to my first point, which is the damage that globalization has already done, particularly to the economies of developing countries, not necessarily small countries. The first thing that globalization did when it reached developing countries is that it replaced a lot of local businesses. We see this with companies such as McDonald's, who came into countries such as South Africa and took away the fast food business or business of local companies. Now, local companies and in developing countries play a seminal role in helping improve the economy. We see this because local companies are putting money back into the economy and are employing and using materials from their society usually. This is what usually happens with small countries. So when we take away this money, when a business such as McDonald's comes into South Africa, it takes away the money that's going into us. It's going into South Africans' pockets and back into that of the big global corporations. It also takes manufacturing jobs away from our economy. We've seen this happen even in South Africa, where very, very big brands such as Mr. Price, which is a clothing brand, doesn't manufacture its clothes in South Africa, even though it is a South African brand. But it is owned by an international company, but rather the clothes are made in China, where it is obviously cheaper to make the clothes. So instead of employing local South Africans South Africans who are buying clothes from this, we've seen that the money is actually going to countries such as China and isn't even a local business venture that benefits us directly. We also see that multinational corporations, which were previously restricted to commercial activities, are increasingly influencing political decisions. Many think that there is a great threat of corporations ruling the world because they are gaining power due to globalization. An absence of strictly enforced international laws means that these large corporations may operate in these developing countries in a way that would not be allowed in a first world country, that they may pollute the environment, run risks with safety or impose poor working conditions and low wages on workers. We've seen this in the instance of Nutella. Nutella is a very famous international brand owned by a company called Ferrero Rocher, where they've gone to countries such as Ghana and replaced all the country's national forest with palm oil and palm plants. What this has done is that it's killed a lot of the wildlife, including orangutans, and this is the place where orangutans thrived and a large population was from, but it's also replaced a lot of where the local people would get their subsistence farming from, and there is huge irreplaceable damage to that society and that economy, as now local people have started to poach because they have no other options, because there is no subsistence farming, and because the wildlife system has been thrown off because of the deforestation. They also don't have a substantial amount of food that they can get from their countries. So that is also a problem, which causes food prices to increase because they've got to import their food, and this is usually from other countries or multinational global organizations. Globalization has also led to the exploitation of labor. Prisoners and child workers are used to work in inhumane conditions, and safety standards are ignored to produce cheap goods. And there is also an increase in human trafficking because of this. So therefore, we've shown you today exactly what the damage has done to developing economies. Now we're going to show you what would happen if it hadn't occurred. Wealth may more be evenly distributed in developing countries, instead of this large socio-economic gap we see, as the rich and in power are often paid off for rights and control in developing countries, where corruption is now the order of the day and most people live under the breadline, such as in Nigeria, where oil exports should make it one of the wealthiest countries in the world. But due to globalization, we see that the money is often given to corrupt officials and foreign oil companies harnessing and refining oil and paying the locals nearly nothing. Trade also may be strengthened within poor economies, as there would be more of a dependence on local companies and local produce, and a reliance on these locally produced things, more jobs and less import, as we would see in South Africa, as we see today that South Africa has a signed agreement with America for America to give us turkeys, even though we don't need turkeys, as most South Africans don't even eat turkeys. So there's a large amount of turkeys in our shoppings, in places and things that sell turkeys, and also South Africa does have a turkey population that we could be selling in our shopping centres. So that's just putting money into the US instead of giving it to South Africans. Our environment could be in a better condition as well, because transport and the things needed to import these items and bring these companies often includes a lot of amount of pollution in our society. So in conclusion, what have we told you today? We've told you that a majority of the world and developing countries would be in a better economic position and a better social position if globalization had not occurred. This is true, as we have shown you the political and knock-on social effects of this and how it has given rise to Western companies. Thank you.